Welcome to the Austin Wedding Show. I'm your host, Jordan Bunch, and we are coming to you from right here in the heart of wedding country at the world famous Ladybird Studios. And of course, you all know my co-host, the one and only, Taylor Juarez.
Thanks, Jordan. Today we have a very special guest wedding planner from Studio 11. She started out working as the venue director for 111 East and is now a lead planner and designer at Studio 11, which is an affiliate brand of 111 East. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Allison Cruz.
Oh, it's great having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us about what you've been up to lately.
So we just got back from holiday season. We started weddings during that time. It was a really popular week. And now we're just going into our spring season and kind of getting all geared up for that.
You guys stay pretty busy year-round over there?
We do, yes. Because we're an indoor venue, we have the flexibility to be open year-round.
And it's such a beautiful space too, because you have the ability to do, you have separate rooms, correct?
Yes, yeah, so we have 2 separate rooms as well as an outdoor courtyard if they want to do a cocktail hour out there or a little welcome party out there. The skylight room is our main feature room for our ceremonies, so well lit all throughout the entire year, and then the main space is where they'll hold their reception room.
When you think about it, what's happening today, right now, could have easily never happened. Neither one of us had to step out of our comfort zones. Me to go on a date with someone I didn't know. And I think about it every single day. How every decision, every conversation, every tweet, and every past move eventually led us here. And it is for that reason that I promise to never take you or the time we spend for granted. I promise to support you, to never doubt you, and to be the epitome of a tag team partner. I will appreciate you, I will challenge you, and I will taste every single thing that comes out of the oven.
We're so excited to talk with you today about Julie and RJ's wedding, which you planned and we did the video for.
Yes.
That wedding was super fun, and the couple they had lots of personal touches. They had, the details. They even had Mario at their reception. Like people were playing Mario. And also their vows were just so amazing. So tell us more about what it was like to plan that wedding.
Sure. So I actually came in on the tail end of their planning. Julie is so organized, such a planner herself. They both knew exactly what they wanted. So a few months before then, I had her sister actually reach out to me from California. She knew that Julie was excellent at planning the whole wedding, but needed someone to kind of be there the month of, to make sure everything logistically flowed, to kind of give them recommendations if they were missing anything, and then to also just kind of be there the week of and the day of to make sure everything ran smoothly. So I was kind of a gift to Julie and RJ from their sister, which was really amazing. Yeah. So they booked me about 60 days out, and so that was only enough time to kind of get together with them as soon as possible. At that time, I was living in South Austin, so we met at Radio Coffee. So it's one of their favorite places, one of my favorite places as well. They just kind of had everything planned and just passed it off all over to me. As far as logistics and stuff like that goes, they had big plans for their guests. So one of them being everyone would be shuttled from Austin to 111 East. Which is about 25 minutes away from the city center, but they wanted to do it in a really fun way, so they had fly rides, get their most colorful bus to bring them. One of the big themes around their wedding, which made it super personal, kind of going back to their love story, is they met over the love of wrestling, which I've never encountered before. So it was really fun to see this couple bond over something that played a part in their entire wedding day. Whenever they arrived to the parking lot to get on the bus, everyone got like Wrestlemania name tags and like vouchers to go around their necks in order to board the bus. So it included all of their guests, made them feel a part of their love story, and then they were shuttled to 111 East.
I'm well aware how crazy it sounds, but from the moment I heard your voice, I just knew. I could feel that there was some sort of future with us. A calmness washed over me, and I felt like I'd known you in every life. I knew immediately that not only were soulmates real, but that I actually had one. Because he was sitting across from me at a coffee shop on South Congress, making some sort of wrestling reference I didn't even understand. I vow that life will never be boring, There will always be 2 to 10 dogs living with us at all times.
At that point, we had their ceremony, which is probably the hardest I've cried since my own wedding, and that is no exaggeration.
Yeah.
They wrote their own vows, so for them, it was just really, really special. It's super personal to me because I got married there at that venue, so being in that room, in that space always gets me emotional, but Julie and RJ were especially emotional. So it was really beautiful. And then throughout the day, we added some of their favorite elements. So for their centerpieces, they had every table number was a different wrestler, but it was really cool to see wrestlers amongst florals and candles on their reception tables. So
hilarious.
something that was incorporated in their day that was really important for them. Something else that they really love is playing Mario Kart. So kind of the last few weeks, we were trying to figure out how we could incorporate that. And do we project it on a screen? Do we project it on one of the brick walls? And luckily their DJ team, Texas Pro DJ, rents those projectors out already and was able to kind of help with that transition.
Awesome. That was for a great party.
Yes, yeah. So whenever our guests went back into the Skylight room for the dance party, there was Mario Kart set up. So it was very interactive. A dance party is going on. They had a photo booth in the corner from Oh Happy Day, which I also used them for my wedding. Kelsey and her team are really amazing. They also incorporated some of their favorite donuts, Bougie's Donuts, which is also in South Austin. I miss them so much.
They had a wrestling theme in there, right?
Yes.
They had the 316 thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they built a sign. I actually did not know that until after the wedding. Oh, okay. So their wedding date was 3/16, and I'm just not very familiar with the wrestling terms or any terminology at all. And then afterwards, when I saw a post on social media of why their wedding date was that day, then it all made sense. And then at the very end for their send-off, they both had wrestling belts on to go out in. Fun. So they made it very unique, very personal. I feel like 111 East attracts couples that are all about their new traditions. I do feel like we get modern couples as well as traditional couples, but especially at the venue because it's a more intimate space, they definitely focus on those little details because you're able to see them more.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Austin is known for so many outdoor venues. To have a venue that is, on a street like that in Hutto, that's exposed brick, it's painted white, it definitely would make sense that it would attract that sort of couple.
Yes, definitely. So it's a historical building. It was built in the 1890s. And then the current owners, they found it, I believe, in 2015, a little bit after they were married themselves, and then just fell in love with the space and revamped it to become what it is today.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. And that's the bottom line, because Jeremy Rochelle said so. RJ, you may stun your bride with a kiss.
So I wanted to touch back on the ceremony you were talking about. Obviously their vows were super personal and amazing to film. Was there officiant? Was that a friend, someone they knew? I was trying to piece together the way.
So when I met him, I mentioned to him that he reminded me of someone, which he says in the vows as well, or not the vows, in his script to them. He was super comical. He was a really close friend of theirs that they both knew, and he always joked around that everyone says that he reminds them of Michael Keegan-Key, one of the comedians from Key and Peele.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I see that. Yeah.
Yes. So he's a really close friend of theirs, and we get that a lot. I feel like probably 90% of my couples choose a family friend or a mutual friend of both of theirs. They become officially ordained, and then they provide the ceremony service instead of it being super traditional and going through a pastor or someone for their church.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And you can tell a lot of times because sometimes we don't know who's doing what or where they're from, but usually when you see those ceremonies, you can tell that they're friends with the couple because they're able to tell stories in a way that you can tell they know them. And it really adds, I think, a unique touch to pick someone to do that job that's so tied into who they are.
And there's a lot of pressure to it. I feel like everyone that we've had has done a really, really great job when it's been a family member or a friend. I always try to talk to them before, give them a few tips on how to do the ceremony. Most of them, it's their first time.
Right.
He was definitely a natural at speaking or public speaking, super funny, but he also got emotional as well. So I feel like the whole room was crying in the best way, but it was really touching because he knew both of them.
Yeah.
Dad. When I look back at pictures of little Julie, she was almost always on top of your shoulders. You wanted to give your youngest kiddo a boost everywhere we went. And as I got older, you still found other ways to give me a little boost because you've spent my entire life lifting me up.
One of the other things I loved about it was the father-daughter. You don't see a lot of times, you don't see a father-daughter first look. Not only did they do a first look, but she actually prepared something to say to him. That was just the sweetest thing.
Yes.
And I'm a dad of 2 little girls, and so anytime I see something like that, my heart kind of melts, and I put myself in that dad's shoes.
Yes.
That was just.
They were
really
very
sweet
intentional. Both of their dads were incredibly, incredibly sweet. So later on, like for when it came time for toasts and speeches, it was another emotional situation.
Yes, it was.
So you can always, pretty much, I try to hide as best as I can. But myself and like the venue managers and our assistants for that day were just trying to hide so no one sees us cry.
Yeah.
So it was really, really sweet. And you could tell, my favorite part, I always tell people, is the ceremony and the speeches, because that's when I get to know my couple a little bit more. Because they were a month of service, I met up with them, I think 3 times before the wedding. We had coffee, we met at the venue, had their final walkthrough, but it's different when you get to see family members and friends speak on their behalf and talk a little bit more about them, about their personalities, how they met, what their journey was like through their engagement. Those are sometimes things that we don't get to see, maybe sometimes through social media, but not on that personal of a level.
Right.
It's great for us too, because like you said, those are like the best storytelling elements for us, is the things that are said.
Yes.
Whether it's in the ceremony, if they're talking to each other, if there's letters, even first look, sometimes we capture some audio moments that end up being really sweet and special for them.
Yeah.
So getting to like get all of those story elements and weave them together is a huge part of the day for us.
Yes, yeah. And so working, I guess, together as a team, I know the Ladybird team that was there for you guys, they worked so well with the photography team, with Feather and Twine, which I think is so important. Both teams are trying to capture the same moments in a different way, whether it be still or, in motion. But I feel like that's probably one of the only weddings that I remember actually sitting down for a significant of time for dinner. They were all fed family style by Royal Fig, as were the vendors, which was amazing.
Yes.
But we all sat there together, DJ, videographer, photographer, and just knowing that everyone had like the same respect for each other, that it takes a team and that not one vendor is valued over the other. So I definitely remember that being a part of the day. And overall, I get asked all the time, what went wrong, or do you have any horror stories or anything like that? And that day was perfect.
Yeah.
The weather was perfect. Vendors were great. The bride and groom were super, super happy. And that's kind of what we're all there for.
Yeah. I think it's just so important. I feel like, if I've taken one thing from the last 10 years of being in this industry, you have to have the mentality of we're all on team bride and groom. It's all about them, and, just egos get put aside, whatever it is, because we're one team.
Definitely.
And that's just so critical.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. In a space like 111 East, it is a little bit more intimate. So whenever you're, trying to solve a problem or working with another vendor team, everyone can see you. So for us, we always try to make sure that everyone is taken care of, all of the guests there, bride and groom, even the vendors, making sure that they have a place to eat their meal. And Royal Fig did an amazing job. They're one of the best caterers in Austin.
Absolutely.
So good.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, because it definitely stood out to me for this wedding, was the florals.
Yes.
I mean, her bouquet alone was massive and beautiful.
Yes.
So tell us more about that.
So this was my first time working with Kismet Floral. Julie wanted it to be very non-traditional in the way that she wanted her florals to kind of take over the space. 111 East is kind of a make-it-your-own blank white canvas for whatever you would like. So the florals on the table were beautiful, but her bouquet in every single photo just kind of took over, and that's exactly what she wanted. I remember Whenever the Floral team went over and took her bouquet, she truly teared up. They were next door at the time. It was a rental showroom, so they were able to rent that out. And so all of her and her girls got ready over there right next door. So they brought all of their bouquets over at the same time, and Julie was ecstatic about it. Awesome. The biggest bouquet I've ever seen in my life, the floral vendor making her dreams come true, not to sound totally cheesy or anything, but it's more than she could have ever imagined. And sometimes, especially when it comes to floral, there's such a free range of exactly what clients want or exactly what they don't want. And I feel like Kismet Floral just kind of blew it out of the park.
Yeah, we've seen them around at other weddings. They do phenomenal work. So great. They're so great to work with, very communicative. She was actually there at our final planning meeting to make sure that Julie was covered on all bases. Usually a lot of the communication is through email or through phone. If there's anything that anyone is concerned about, the Kismet Floral team wanted to make sure that she was taken care of that day. So they were actually there for a final walkthrough.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember in the vows that RJ said, I will taste everything that comes out of the oven. So I understand that she was quite the baker.
Yes, and she still is. So I actually first met Julie when we launched Studio 11 about a year and a half ago. At the time, I hadn't had any prior contact with her, but the venue owner did. And we had kind of a little open house at the venue, and Julie showed up with, I think maybe half a dozen of cookies with our new logo on it for Studio 11.
That's awesome.
I was super emotional because it was my first time seeing the logo on product, even though it was a cookie, and it was so good. And she has been very intentional and very giving, even when it comes to sweets. So at that point, I followed her. I've recommended for her to bake cookies for bachelorette parties. She even made my new niece's baby shower cookies.
Nice.
So they're little Frito-Rat cookies. So she's been a really big constant in the form of cookies, even past her wedding. But at the wedding, when all the vendors arrived, she had a box for every single vendor that was themed to their service. So for Studio 11, I believe we had another Studio 11 cookie with wedding cookies. I think they said their wedding date or RJ and Julie. I remember the photographer's box had a little camera in it. So she was just so detailed that way, so thoughtful. And for me, I feel like that was such a connection with every single vendor and letting them know that she was thinking about them and how happy she was that they were there for her wedding day.
It really does make a difference for us because it's it's our job and we're here and we're doing things. Sometimes, we get in our work mode and not every vendor has much contact with the couple depending on what they're doing that day. But when the couple goes that next step and really acknowledges you're there, you're part of my team, my day, my experience, it just makes it that much better, and it makes us definitely even more invested in really wanting to do well and really craft the best product for them.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's what this one always stands out all the time, just because we still are in contact with them, even though it's through social media. And we've seen how her business has grown with her cookies.
Cool.
I know that she makes other little delicious desserts, like mini cupcakes and things like that. I think maybe she has a Valentine's box coming up. I'm not sure. She did last year. It was great.
That sounds good.
So just to see how she's evolved and to kind of continue along with her story. And she always, posts stories of her baking process, how she decorates cookies. RJ's in the back somewhere tasting them to make sure it's perfect, along with their 2 dogs. And then throughout the year, something that I really connected with her on, that I even went to go see her afterwards, I think it was the week after their wedding, she decided to foster puppies, which she had done before, and that was a really big thing in her vows as well.
Yeah. 2 to 10
that's
dogs
right.
would always be
2 to 10 dogs
yes.
at all times.
Yes. So her dogs are just so precious. I'm a huge dog lover. I have 2 dogs of my own, and so we really connected on that also.
Nice.
They weren't supposed to do a bouquet toss. So usually maybe 1 out of every 5 weddings will say, actually more than that. I feel like half my weddings don't do a bouquet toss or garter toss anymore. I don't know if it's just something that's just kind of phased out. Yeah. And usually a lot of brides feel like they can't do a bouquet toss if there's no garter toss. But
I've seen a lot where it's just bouquet and no garter.
Yes. And so she decided last minute during her dance party to do that. So I always grab a bridesmaid's bouquet, obviously not throwing her.
That would be.
Yes. So I just went up to the DJ and I was like, hey, can we please look at their must play songs, because I wanted it to be, a really fun song. As much as we love, Beyonce and Single Ladies, I kind of wanted it to be something that they had specifically picked, even though it was last minute. So I do remember looking at their must play song list and then having Man, I Feel Like a Woman by Shania Twain.
Oh, nice.
And so we just kind of went with it, and I was like, just play this one and maybe it'll work. And it kind of segued into like the best part of their dance party, only because that was playing into the bouquet toss. Her mom caught it, so everyone freaked out.
Yeah.
And then they just let the song play, and then we dimmed the lights, and it was just kind of party on from there.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, Texas Pro always gets the party going.
Yes, they do.
Well, it's been amazing having you on the show.
Thank you so much for
It was such
having
an
me.
amazing wedding that we got to do with you.
Yes,
so
it was so fun.
super grateful for that. If there's, if our audience would like to follow you online to learn more about what you guys do, where should they go?
Sure. So our website for Studio 11 and 111 East is 111east.com. Has all of the info on there on how you can rent the venue, how you can tour the space. As far as Studio 11 for our planning services, you can follow us at Studio 11 Events on Instagram as well as on Facebook, and then for 111 East at 111 East, all spelled out.
Well, thanks again, Allison, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to all of you watching at home. And remember,
Keep Austin married.